Hello, everyone, and welcome to this product demonstration webinar, Speed Up Your Quality Process, brought to you by HiQA. I'm Lisa Sterling, your host and moderator for today's session. Before we get started, though, I would like to mention just a couple of housekeeping items. We invite you to ask questions throughout the presentation, as your phone is muted during the session. We will address the questions received at the end of the presentation. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for playback in just a few days. I would now like to introduce you to our presenter for today, Ryan Ganser, who you can see at the top of your screen there. He is our Regional Sales Director here at HiQA. And with that, I will go ahead and turn the floor over to Ryan to get us started.
Thanks, Lisa. And thank you everybody for joining us here for the next hour or so. To go through a quick agenda, we're going to start off with just a couple of slides before diving into the product itself. We'll talk about who HiQA is and what we do. And then actually we'll show you how we can speed up not only the ballooning process, but also your reporting and data collection processes. So specifically, we'll show you our one-click auto ballooning through our proprietary optical character recognition technology. Throughout the demo, you're never going to see me cut, copy, and paste or anything like that. You will never see me save as or put something in a folder. Everything is centralized within the HiQA database. Lastly, we'll show you from a reporting perspective how integrated FAIs, PPAPs, APQP submission packages can all be generated through the use of automation as well as templatized reports customized specifically to what you and ultimately your customers are looking for. So real quick about HiQA, we were founded in 2015, currently serving over 1,500 customers in 5 continents. And you can see over here, we have various customers, whether it be OEMs or two-person shops. We kind of serve it all. And specifically, we are seeing a lot of aerospace, defense, medical, as well as seeing some more automotive and oil and gas customers. But industries of all sorts, if you care about quality, chances are we can provide a lot of value for what you're looking for. Our formal vision, mission, and values. Our vision is to simplify and automate your manufacturing quality processes. Our mission is to be on time, on budget, and on quality. And lastly, our values: innovation, integrity, and teamwork. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we are a database-driven solution. So everything that you can see over here on the left within that wheel is done inside the database. At the end of the day, we're all about saving time. HiQA actually stands for high quality automation. So separated out into 4 different categories, we have our part and job planning. We have our production and data collection, our reporting and submissions, and then also our supplier collaboration, all working inside the database, connected to one another through the digital database. Oftentimes, what you're seeing here is able to be done automatically. So specifically, we'll focus a lot of time on this part and job planning section, the auto ballooning. For those of you that are required to perform in-process checks, we'll show how we can break a part down into various operations, change the requirements for those operations, and then ultimately we want to bring back in data against the requirements that we've established through our part and job planning. So methods for data collection, we have various methods. At the end of the day, we just want to get the results into the database. So we can connect automatically to CMMs, VMMs, Faro arms, if it runs on software. Like I said, automatically as a background running operation, bringing in those results. We also have a digital shop floor data collection module for your manual checks. Think calipers, mics, stuff like that. We're digitally out on the shop floor. You can enter in your results as you're making the measurements, and that'll flow automatically into the database. And then the most manual way of data collection, you can always export things out into Excel templates and then re-import those back into the system. So we also have tool and gauge management, part of our core product. real-time SPC monitoring, and then when we move into the reporting and submissions, whether that's a simple first article, a full-blown PPAP, APQP submission package, everything is templatized. So your forms that you probably already have would be implemented into our system as templates. So you have the requirements through the part and job planning stage and the auto ballooning. You have the results paired up against those requirements. Then quite literally, you can click one button and have your reports generated with the requirements and results all tied to one another. We won't have time to get into it today, but this blue section, our supplier collaboration module, that essentially is bringing all of these preferences that you have set up to your suppliers. So you're bringing your suppliers to your shop floor. These three green sections, that's more internally focused. And like I said, that's where we'll focus our time today. All right, let's jump into the software itself. We will be pretty high level here in terms of an overview demonstration. I do want to emphasize that as a recommended next step, if there's interest, we'd be more than happy to take your prints through this process, dive a little bit deeper as well. HiQA is an on-prem solution. So as mentioned earlier, a lot of our customers are in aerospace, defense, medical. So from a security standpoint, we're not leaving your network walls. We're installed on your local server. I'm just going to bring in a print that I have saved on my desktop. So here's my print here. General layout or interface of our system is like any Microsoft or Windows application. By that, I just mean ribbons will be up here on the top.
So Ryan, I hate to interrupt you. Can you do a quick refresh on your HiQA screen? I'm still seeing the PowerPoint.
Does that work?
Let's see. Still the same. Can you close the PowerPoint?
Yeah. Weird. You can't see?
Okay, now I see you. Okay.
Let me try again. How's that?
Just my screen. Hold on. Yes, we're good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Sorry about that. As I was saying up here on the top, various ribbons with drop-down menus. I can move around my print with my mouse. I can also zoom in and zoom out. Over here to the right-hand side, I'll be directing your attention here throughout, but at all times, just think of it as a peek into the database. So these various fields will show you what data resides within the database, oftentimes automatically. These are, however, open text fields. So if you do need to edit, we provide that flexibility in terms of being able to type in your information. Okay, for us, HiQA, everything starts at the auto ballooning stage. So the very first thing I'm going to do is up here at the top, I'm going to click auto balloon, GD&T, and PMI. And we have different preferences. So if you have multiple pages that you're required to balloon, you can balloon them all at once, or even select pages, for example, page 2, 3, and 4. Those are the ones you need to balloon. You can also tell the system that if you don't care about basic or reference dimensions, to ignore things like that. I'm just going to click OK. We are now sending this through our OCR technology. OCR does stand for optical character recognition, and it is a proprietary technology. Quite literally took us 6 years to develop what you're going to see here in, looks like 15 seconds. So this OCR technology is certainly our biggest claim to fame, and it was designed specifically for manufacturing, reading manufacturing prints and GD&T recognition. So you can see 15 seconds, we ballooned, we have 24 balloons consisting of 34 dimensions. And you can see here, we're ballooned. Even more, I would say, impressive and or important is what we have down below. We call this our bill of characteristics. Let me scroll this up so we can see a little bit better. This is everything we extracted in that 15 seconds. Quite literally, we generated your inspection plan. Just to highlight a couple of the fields, we have our dimension number here, dimension type, what the requirement is. If there are any multipliers, let me scroll down here. I think we got some. We will auto recognize those. You can see our 4x here. And yeah, nominals, tolerancing, everything saves to the database in real time. That's a key point of emphasis. If you wanted to export this inspection plan out, you can. Just up here at the very top, we have our inspection reports dropdown. I'll click inspection planner. And this is one of the areas where we have your templates stored. So this is just an example of an inspection plan template, exporting this out to Excel. I always say that the system was designed to be fully paperless. However, we offer the flexibility of maybe going a little less paper, but before fully paperless and digital. So using this as an example, here's my Excel inspection plan, right? Everything we extracted in that 15 seconds. A lot of people like that we have these symbols over here automatically generated for you. And then this column P over here, this actual column, this is where you could type in your results. And then, as I said earlier, import this Excel sheet back into the database. Okay. So now I'm going to talk briefly on the concept of what we call part categories. So top right of your screen, I'm flipping to our part properties tab, and you can see Ganser machine is my current part category. The easiest or quickest way to describe a part category is just to think of it as like a profile or series of default settings, preferences, however you want to term it. It's just that mindset of having things set up ahead of time so that you can automate downstream. So a lot of our customers, they'll use these part categories for like their customers, part types, part families, things like that. Again, it's just a series of default settings, preferences, with the mindset of having it set up ahead of time so you can automate downstream. You can always change after the fact if needed, which we'll show you here in a bit. But a couple of aspects that roll up into my part category. One is my sampling rule, which you can see down here below is set up to default to 1 per lot sampling. Like I said, you can always change after the fact. So by clicking in here, I can sample on a specific AQL table, percent, per hour, per shift, per lot, whatever I want. Rolls up underneath those part categories. Additionally, we have this gauge category, which I'm hovering over now. And let me actually jump into a dimension. Over here to the right, peek into the database. You can also see this gauge category showing up here. And this is dependent on dimension type. So again, part categories, part families, or customers. But based on dimension type, my system is saying that if it's a linear, then we're going to use a caliper. And that's a category. So that's not an individual caliper, it's the category, which this ties into our gauge management tool, which I'll show here in a bit, to ultimately streamline out to the shop floor. Using this as an example, we already know we're going to use a caliper because it's a linear dimension. My gauge management tool can tell the folks out on the shop floor, here's your available, non-expired calipers, where they can then digitally check in and check out the specific caliper, enter in the results. And then by doing everything in one spot, we have usage history or traceability tied to that specific part, job, lot, dimension, person, as well as the results. But again, gauge category rolls up underneath that part category. One other aspect underneath our part categories, big point of emphasis, saves a lot of time and also promotes consistency, is based, based on tolerancing. So if the tolerance is called out on the print itself, it's like you can see this plus right-hand side of the screen, peek into the database, we will bring that tolerancing in. If it's not, so if I go back to that 4-inch, this plus or minus 10 thou, in my case, that's that's based on a decimal table. Customer, part type, part family specific. If the tolerance isn't on the print, I'm bringing in 10 thou for nominals that have two decimal points. Okay. Next, I'm going to focus on our title block. So we don't automatically recognize information from title blocks. There's just not enough standards to do so consistently and accurately. And you can see over here to the right, my part name and part number. By default, that's just the file name that I brought in. But top left of the screen now, we have various efficiency tools here. We'll touch on a couple of them. One being this extract title block text. So now that I have that icon picked, I can just box select information from my title block. So I'm clicking, dragging. Once I drop, I can say, all right, this is my part name. Now, if you notice up in the top right of the screen, that shaft clamp bracket is now populated into my part name field, saved to the database. So from here on out, any form that I generate, which again is templatized, it's going to automatically show shaft clamp bracket as my part name. Do the same thing with part number here. We're just leveraging our OCR technology in a couple of different ways to just speed up time, certainly, but also increase or promote consistency. Even this rev here that I just hovered over, I like to point this out because it is a different size and style text. Being able to recognize that is one of our, I would say, differentiators. Now, at the end of the day, it is just one letter. So as I said earlier, these are open text fields. I could have typed it in if I wanted to. All right, so we talked about the tolerancing, right, where that comes from. Next, for those of you that have a need to balloon notes, we're not going to auto balloon notes. Similarly, there's just not enough standard to do so. Some people want it, some people don't. It can be anywhere on the page. But another efficiency tool we have, top left of the screen, is this T icon to balloon notes. When I click that, that flips our OCR so that we're no longer looking for GD&T. We're just looking for text. And again, I'm just going to box select. I'm clicking, dragging, and dropping. And you can see we assign a balloon number next to it. It's also showing up down below on my inspection plan as a note. The right-hand side of the screen, having open text fields, I can type in whatever I want as well. And when we go to actually collect data up against these requirements, a lot of customers will just treat these notes as like a pass-fail. And then on the print itself, we do have automatic leader lines, just as things get a little condensed, just to clean things up. Everything is customizable in terms of shapes, colors, sizes. This is kind of just how my system is set up. Next, we have our material. So just below the T icon to balloon notes, we have the M to balloon material. Box select. Going back to the top right of the screen, we're going to automatically flip to our materials and processes tab. You can see the T6 that we captured. Whenever you do see a pencil, that gives you the opportunity to add more information if you want. So if I click in here, I can add things like a material code, a spec number, a cert number, indicate who the supplier is. I can also upload any attachments that I might want. Most commonly here would be like a material cert. Again, everything's saved to the database in real time. Okay, I'm going to touch briefly on this balloon 17 here. I like to point this one out for a couple of reasons. One, it's stacked, right? Diameter thread, true position. But we also have that 4x for our 4 holes. So if you wanted this to be 3 separate balloons, 17, 18, 19 for each dimension type, you can. It's just a setting. My system creates one single balloon, and then down below, 17.1, 0.2, and 0.3. with the 4x there. Taking this a step further, because at the end of the day, we really have 12 line items, right? The 4 times 3. If you wanted to explode this out, over here to the right, we have this multiply dimensions button. So I click that, you can now see, if I scroll up a little bit, all 12 lines. 17.1 underscore 1, all the way down to 17.3 underscore 4. And then my system will also create these little sub balloons. I can drag them over the individual holes if I wanted to. I want to emphasize the system is highly configurable. So we're not, hey, this is how you have to use it. It can be tailored to your specific processes and how you do things. We're just going to make it more efficient, save you some time and promote that consistency. Okay. So obviously this is a pretty clean drawing. I know every drawing doesn't look like this. Just last week, I looked at a hand-drawn sketch from 1959. So for those poor resolution drawings, don't expect 100% accuracy. If the human eye can barely read it, it's going to be tough for a computer to read it. But blanket statement, doesn't matter the level of quality that the drawing has. You're going to be able to fully complete it inside of our system. You're not going to have to leave. And then once you do it, you're only going to have to do it once. Because at that point, that part record exists in the database and you can run multiple jobs up against it. So I'm just going to pretend we missed a dimension here. I'm just going to delete this guy. Another efficiency tool we have is called whiteout balloons, top left. Once I click that, it hides everything that's been captured already. So as you get more complex drawings, it's just an easy way to see if anything has been missed. And you can then zoom in and just box select. It is a recommended best practice to double check what the system comes up with. Right-hand side of the screen, right? Peek into the database. Okay, it's a 2-inch, it's a linear based on the decimals. We're going to provide a default plus or minus 10th thou based on it being a caliper, or based on it being a linear, we're going to use a caliper. And then we do have this reviewed checkbox here. So if you already get drawn away from your desk at any point, it's, like I said, a recommended best practice to easily see where you left off. So I'm going to take whiteout balloons off. Many of you are probably noticing that we're now out of sequence because I deleted it and then added it. It kind of goes to the end. If you want to get things back in order, just click numbering up here at the top. Now we're back in order. For those of you that have to work in metric or English and have a preference on one or the other, very simple. Click these 2 arrows up at the top. So I ballooned this. This was in English. Click these arrows. Now we're in metric. English, metric. When we ballooned at the very beginning in those first 15 seconds, we already did the conversion. It's all in the database. We're just changing the views. Okay. So that's kind of the core, or I guess basic functionality of the ballooning processes. Just to set the stage here, I'm now going to get into some operations for like your in-process checks. Then I'll touch on gauge management super quickly. Then we'll go out to the shop floor interface for data collection for like your manual checks. And then I'm going to simulate some results coming from like a CMM. And then we'll get into the reporting side of things. So for handling in-process checks, I'm clicking this MFG operations tab up at the top. So we have a different color now, kind of this bluish green color. This is my system's way of signaling that we're at the finished part, which you can see up here in the top right. If I want to assign certain dimensions to an op, just hold Control, click the dims I'm interested in. And then over here to the right, click that Add Operation button. we now have an op 10 in yellow. My system calls it op 10, as I said. But it's linked to one another, right? It's still tied to the original, the finished part. We got two colors next to that balloon 4. It's just sub op 10. You can also grab a bunch of dimensions at once. So if I wanted to get all these holes down here in the bottom, I can just box select it. And again, click add operation. We'll do one more just to make it look pretty. Op 10, op 20, op 30, right? Different colors, but all linked to each other. We have these pencils again. So if I click in here, I can drill down and add more information. I can change things like my op name. Say this is my roughing op. I can tie it to a work cell, a machine, or even a process. For those of you that are required to generate PPAPs, process flows, control plans, FMEAs, what we're doing by tying up this to a process, which would be your specific process, we're quite literally building that process flow and those control plans. We have a process library in the background, your specific process library, to just automate that entire process. So these were holes, we'll call this drilling. Tie it to my drilling process. Additionally, we do have ERP connectors. So some of this data entry that you're seeing here can be done automatically via the ERP integration. We'll just say we're going to turn op 30. Okay. I can also filter by these operations. So down below, if I click this drop down arrow, if I wanted to look at my roughing, I now have a print just for my roughing op. I can send this out as a PDF or as an Excel inspection plan, like I showed earlier. Maybe before doing that, however, I want to update my requirements. Since this is my roughing pass, down below, I can just right click and say bulk update. So now I can change these characteristics or these requirements, but just for, in this case, our roughing op. So if I'm looking at our nominal here, I can add, subtract, multiply, or increase by a percentage. Let's just say I'm going to add 20 thou. I can change the upper to, I don't know, plus 50, lower minus 40. I can change how I want to measure this op. Also, how I want to sample it. And for those of you that are required to track SPC, you want real-time SPC on these dimensions as the results are coming in. All you have to do is click that checkbox. And you can see down below now those updates were changed. Added 20 thou plus 50 minus 40. Okay. So now that we have our in-process sheets generated, I'm going to touch on gauge management super quickly, and then we'll get into the data collection side of things. So up at the top, we have our measurement gauges tab. I click this. It's kind of what you'd expect. It's a list of all of your gauges. We do have the ability to bulk import. So coming from third-party gauge management systems or even Excel sheets, by no means do we expect you to type all this information in. We do have different colors. So if a gauge has expired, it'll be in this red with a stop sign. If a gauge is approaching expiration, it'll be in this maroon with an exclamation point. We have notification settings. So you or groups can even get emailed if a gauge expires or is approaching expiration. And then down below, just general gauge information, right? This is my caliper 1. It belongs to the caliper category. If I so choose, I can provide details about where it's located, calibration details, cert details, all this information. So this is part of the core product. We have various add-ons and modules. This is part of the core product. So whether you choose to use it or not, it's here. Big benefit of using our gauge management. Well, I guess it's a couple, but one, it's all in one spot. So it's nice to have everything in one spot. But from a traceability standpoint, it's very nice to have everything in one spot. Um, because you're doing it all in one spot, we have this usage history tab. So for this specific caliper, caliper 1, I can see every part, job, lot, dimension, requirement, and results that were measured. I can see if there's been any NCRs tied to this gauge. And I can see who used it and when they used it. Additionally, you can set up your calibration interval based on that usage history. You know, if you got a gauge you're using every, for example, say 6 months, doesn't necessarily make sense to be calibrating it quarterly, right? Things like that. So from an efficiency standpoint, there's benefits as well. Okay. So next, we're going to transition to the data collection side of things. I'm going to first go out to the shop floor, to our digital shop floor interface, and then we'll simulate some results coming from like a CMM. So this is our shop floor interface. IM Explorer. This is browser-based. So it's not web-based, browser-based, so still not leaving your network, but much more lightweight. So this can be run on like tablets, iPads, or just lightweight computers out on the shop floor where you can log in. You can also scan in if you have barcodes on badges. And it would look a little bit like this. So the balloon print that was already set up for us. By default, I'm at the finished part level. We do have a little tolerance bar down below. So doing the math on what's in and out of tolerance. Just for example's sake, let's look at the roughing op because that's what we were kind of playing with earlier. So if I'm in charge of roughing, it's just these 5 dimensions that I'm being asked to measure. And again, you can see the requirements over here, added 20 thou, plus 50, minus 40. Because it's a linear, gonna use a caliper. So now when I go to select my tool and gauge, I click inside this box here. I'm only showing calipers that haven't expired. This one's in red actually because it expires within 30 days. But if I were to show you all of them, you can see here we actually have 2 that have expired. So this is where I can digitally select my gauge and enter in my results. So a good check is going to turn green, and we're going to auto toggle to the next dimension to be measured. Also note that caliper 1 here is still selected. Just logically, if you're running this op, you checked out caliper 1, you're going to use that same gauge. Oops. Just to show you again, a good check is going to turn green and auto toggle to the next dimension. We also do support Bluetooth or wireless gauges. So this box is blinking at me here, listening for that wireless connection. But the way I'm demonstrating right now, this is manual, right? I'm typing in these results. So there's the potential for human error. Let's just pretend I fat fingered this and accidentally typed in 40. Get a little error message saying this is out of tolerance. Would you like to measure it again? You know what? Yeah, I fat fingered it, need to measure it again. Or no, if this was a failed check, I can click keep failed, where you have the option to populate an NCR, a nonconformance at the point of failure, right? And because I'm doing it all in one spot in a digital environment, I know the job, I know the person, I know the date, I know the lot. We will auto serialize an NCR number here. You can type in your own if you need to. Your specific defect types would be here with your defect codes, little legend promoting what each code means. Again, just providing that consistency. We'll say we had a tool break. we now have an NCR tied to this dimension. We'll also turn it red. For things like a visual check or a pass fail, a note, for example, would look like this over here to the right, pass fail. Some of our customers that are using this on their iPads, they'll literally take a picture of their check. They'll click this button, upload the picture as an attachment, pass it, and move on. So this system is designed to be very intuitive and lightweight. Essentially, it's, hey, here's the dimensions we're asking you to measure. As you're measuring it, either push that button on the Bluetooth gauge or type in those results as you're measuring it, and that flows into the database automatically. So now, other method of data collection, right? We talked about the shop floor interface. That's for your manual checks, calipers, mics, stuff like that. I'm going to simulate connecting to a CMM. We have what's called our AMDI module, automatic machine data import, where, long story short, we're installed on your server, right? On-prem. We set up folders on your server for each of your machines. Our team will then map from your machines to those folders. Every time machine makes a measurement, it's going to automatically export to those folders. We then set up HiQA, the database, to listen to those folders. Results are populated. We'll bring those results in from the folder. We'll translate it into a way that works with our database, and then archive the results. It's kind of a long-winded way of saying every time your machines make a measurement, as a background running operation, we'll be getting those results. Eliminates a lot of data entry and saves a lot of time. So for me to simulate that process, I'm not connected to a CMM. I'm just going to import a static inspection plan. So I do this because it also simulates the third way of data collection, which is importing an Excel sheet. So I'm going to go up here at the top. I'm going to click import inspection results by preset. And I'll even open this up. So this is the file that I'm going to import. Looks very similar to what we saw earlier with our Excel inspection plan. The only difference is we have a bunch of actuals over here. So that's the file I'm going to import. And you can see we have various presets. So this is the inspection plan preset. We have Calypso, Keyence, PCDemus, mCosmos. Essentially, if it runs on software, we can connect to it. And just to reiterate, if you were to subscribe to our AMDI module, automatic machine data import, this would be done completely in the background. But you can see here, this is the file, and you preview the results that are coming in. And as the results come in, green is good, red is bad, just like we saw on the shop floor interface. If you're wondering why these two are purple, that is the one downside of using a static file. When I originally created that file, 8 was 9 and 9 was 8. So the system's kind of letting me know something's up here. I can change that manually if I want, but if you were to do this in real time, that wouldn't be the case because you have it set up and programmed to match. But yeah, down below, here's all of our results. So to recap, we automatically identified our requirements, all the GD&T recognition through our auto ballooning. We created some in-process checks for like roughing, drilling, turning. We touched on gauge management. And then we got into the data collection side of things from the shop floor, from the CMM, as well as from an Excel sheet. Now that we have the results paired up against the requirements, we can report. So I'm going back up to this inspection reports dropdown, and I'm going to click single piece just because this is a one sample. But if you had multi-piece, we completely support that. This is one of the other places where your specific templates are stored. So we support, I deal a lot in aerospace, so we have the AS9102 and Net Inspect, but rest assured, whatever templates you guys have or whatever forms you guys have, we will implement as templates just to show, let's show the AS9102. Here's form one. Your logo would be up here at the top. Here's where our part name and part number are automatically populated. Form two with all of our material record that I put in at the beginning. And then here's form three with our results. Also, if you remember, I uploaded that material cert. Here's our material cert. So that's the concept for first articles. Very similarly, for those of you that have a need for PPAP and submission packages, everything's templatized. So based on the templates that you have, which can be customer specific, part type, part family specific, you can generate your various documents. I'm not going to talk about all of this, but here's your process flow based on, the processes that you've identified in the process library that you have in the background, your control plan, your FMEA, all your documents, they're all linked to one another as well. They're individual dynamic applications linked to one another. It's a common use case. If you change your process flow, one of the first places an auditor is going to look is, well, what happened with your control plan? Why didn't that reflect that change? Inside of our system, that's impossible. They're linked to one another. So that's the high level overview. I do want to jump back into the PowerPoint before we answer hopefully some questions you guys have for me. So let me pull this back up. Where are we here? Okay. Hopefully you got an understanding of how configurable our system is. By no means is it expected for you to sign up and go off on your own and figure out. We have a highly involved onboarding team. Additionally, being able to connect via APIs, I mentioned it earlier, your ERP connectors, various things, eliminating data entry, eliminating siloed areas of information, and automating the linkage between systems. That's what HiQA does at its core. Here's where I was talking about our support.
So
Over
Ryan, I'm still seeing the HiQA application.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Well, thank you for letting me know. I will see what we can do.
While Ryan's doing that, just a reminder that you can type any questions that you might have into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen.
How's that?
There we go. Yes.
Okay. So here's our support staff. 20% of our company is dedicated post-sale. So that's making sure, you're trained correctly for one, but also ongoing support through the subscription. So in short, HiQA, we're your one-stop shop. We're an all-in-one centralized manufacturing quality management system. Points of emphasis there, all in one, not just quality, also manufacturing, bringing everybody into one centralized source. No interpretation is the goal. I didn't touch on it today, but we also support 3D MBDs. So whether that's a 2D print or 3D MBD, automatically generating those inspection plans for data collection, CMMs, manual from the shop floor interface, or even Excel, real-time SBC, which I didn't have time to show today, and I briefly touched on the PPAP. So now I want to open up the floor for questions. Hopefully there are some. Either I'll answer them verbally or I can even just show you jumping back into the system. So Lisa, if you can let me know if there are any questions, we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ryan. Yes, we did get a couple of questions coming in through the presentation. And again, now is the time to go ahead and type additional questions in. So the first question is actually more for me. It's asking if they'll be getting a copy of the presentation recording. The answer is yes. The session is being recorded, and I will be sending it out via email in the next couple of days so that you can share it with your colleagues or watch it back yourself. Here's a question for you though, Ryan. It says, while we import drawing, what type of file will it accept?
Yeah, really any image file. Most commonly is PDF, but TIFF, there's some other acronyms that I'm not aware of or at the top of my head, but essentially any image file, our OCR is going to be able to scan, identify the dimensions and extract them into the database.
Perfect. Okay, here's another question. It says, where are you getting your tolerances from?
Okay. Let me know if you can't still see my screen. Can you see the system now, Lisa?
Not yet. Try a double click.
Okay. So are you still seeing the PowerPoint?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then I'll just talk about it. So we have we have tables in the background for tolerancing. So if you remember, I showed that that plus plus dimension. If the tolerance is called out on the drawing itself, we'll bring that in. If it's not, that's where we have tables in the background, which can be customer specific, part type, part family specific, however you want. It can be a range table or a decimal table. My system was set up to show or pull from a decimal table so that if there was 2 decimal points, I defaulted to plus or minus 10,000. So it's kind of that mindset again of just having things set up ahead of time. So it's going to generate automation. If you wanted to change it, you could. We do have the capability to do that. Hopefully that answered your question. It would have been nice if I could just show it to you, but I think for the sake of time, it doesn't make sense to keep unsharing and sharing my screen.
Sure, no problem. Okay, here's another question. It says, we currently manage gauges in Excel. Do we have to enter all of our gauges into HiQA manually?
No, no, no. Excuse me. We have the ability to bulk import Excel sheets into our gauge management tool. Um, a high majority of our customers are coming from Excel, whether that's gauge management or your various forms, first article forms. Um, our system is designed to work very well with Excel. So importing that Excel sheet wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, great. Here is another question. It says, we make custom operation drawings. How do we handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you make custom operation drawings, you can upload those into um, into our system. There's one of the drop downs on the main page is add revision sheet. So you can add that revision sheet and tie it to the the final part, the final drawing. Additionally, as I showed, being able to create operations within operation sheets within the system, not having to upload is another option where, remember, I created that roughing operation. For those specific, I think it was 5 dimensions, we changed the tolerancing for that operation, and then you have that sheet already generated for you. So again, very flexible tool, highly configurable, however you want to work or what your processes are, we're going to be able to support that.
Okay, here's a question. It says, we only need the auto ballooning feature. Is that an option?
Yeah, so plans are completely customizable. If you remember that um, customer slide that I showed at the very beginning, we have OEMs that have very extensive and comprehensive plans, but we also have two person shops as customers. So if all you need is auto ballooning, I mean, there's some like the gauge management, you're going to have that, but definitely plans are module based. based on what your needs are and ultimately what your budget is. Um, More often than not, we're able to find something that works for you.
Perfect. And also just a side note, if you are interested in taking the next step that Ryan mentioned and having a one-on-one demonstration, we are absolutely more than happy to do that for you. There's a quick link in the chat. Feel free to just click that and fill out the short form, and we will be sure to get you scheduled. Let's conclude with this final question here. It says, how long does it take to be trained on the HiQA software?
Yeah, so training depends on comprehensiveness of your plan for one, who all needs to be involved and different things like that. Um, Based on plan comprehensiveness, we have a dedicated amount of support hours that how that is allocated is up to you. So one of the first things we would do is establish a welcome call where we determine who needs to be involved, ideally schedule recurring meetings based on what makes sense for you. We can go as fast or as slow as you need. We know at the end of the day, everybody, we still need to make parts. So we're not trying to halt production by any means, but also getting you up and running is going to eliminate that bottleneck. So finding that balance is what we do. And then, yeah, if there aren't any more questions, I just want to emphasize what Lisa had said for our next demonstration. We'd love to use your own parts, right? You guys know how long things take with your drawings. Um, let's take a look with your own drawings. We'll also use that as an opportunity to dive deeper into the system itself. In 50 minutes or however long we were on, it's hard to touch everything. So we try to be like a high level and, you know, show you, scratch the surface, if you will. But yeah, happy to use your own parts in a much deeper demonstration.
Okay, so sorry. I just realized that someone has messaged me that the
Oh,
the form is blank at the moment. So we just actually went through a brand new website launch this week. So my apologies. Apparently, there's something malfunctioning with the form itself. Feel free to go ahead and drop your name in there, though, and your contact information right back in this chat, and I'll be sure to get you set up. We'll go ahead and leave the session open for a few minutes with the final slide there. Maybe Ryan, our website is hiqa.com. Let's take a look. Maybe the contact us form is the one fun side effect of launching a brand new website. Okay, and also I will be sending the recording via email, so feel free to just simply hit reply on that message and I can connect with you that way as well. Well, thanks again, Ryan. Thank you to the audience for spending the hour with us. We appreciate your time and hope that you found the session valuable. And like I said, keep an eye on your email. I will be sending this recording shortly. Thanks, everyone. Have a
yeah.
wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.